What is up, guys? My name is Blob, and welcome back to Pause. And following on from the last episode where we built our open day area, today we're actually going to be building for an animal. I can't believe it, and it's going to be one of the big cats. We put a poll up on the channel, and let's jump in and who won. So welcome in everybody to this episode. Again, we had a poll on the community tab. Thank you so much to everyone who voted on that. It was way too close for my liking, but however, there is a win-win in the sense that the Caracal won. So if you were someone who voted on the Caracal, today is going to be your day. But if you did vote for the Bengal tiger, fret not, they're going to be coming in the next episode, just because their habitat is going to be based next to this one. So very exciting stuff indeed. But when I say that the poll was close, I cannot put into words how close it was. Again, thank you so much for the staggering amount of people that actually voted on the poll. That was also a very nice surprise. But at the same time, I was starting to build this, and then it looked like the other cat might win, and I was sort of very hesitant to actually start this habitat until I had a concrete answer. But it became very clear that I was not going to get a concrete answer. Speaking of concrete, in the background we are building some I don't even know how they're not retaining walls, but sort of these stone edges. This is obviously at the back of the open day area that we're going to be utilizing. This is going to be an open area for you to be able to view the Caracals on like this hilltop. There's going to be 3 different viewing vantage points for the Caracals, but this is going to be sort of main open one, and then we're going to have 2 viewing windows on the other side where we're going to be having some water, more confined areas. But going in, doing a bunch of terrain work, I really wanted this to have different variations in the terrain. I know a lot of my habitats are either sloped down from the back to the front or just completely flat, and obviously I've put so much work into the elevation of this whole place that I really wanted to bring that into this as well. And I wanted to have these different height variations, just give it that rolling hills feel, just to sort of play more into what could be the natural topography of the grounds here on Pause. Getting in these 2 window viewing areas, I know a lot of people would probably be a bit like, you're just being lazy, you're reusing the viewing areas that you've used for a lot of the other cats. But at the end of the day, you know, work smarter, not harder. You know, I've got these viewing galleries that I'm completely happy with. Why would I then go and sort of spend way loads of time creating some new ones when the sanctuary themselves may have just sanctioned the construction of multiple different viewing galleries from the same people at the same time? So I'm not getting too caught up on that. You're going to see me reusing a bunch of assets, but it's purely because I'm happy with them. You know, like, again, work smarter, not harder. And on the topic of working smarter, you obviously see this green grass thing that I've been placing down all over the place. This is just to sort of give myself an idea of where I'm going to be working with the actual terrain work. So there's no point in me doing terrain work in something that is likely going to get absolutely covered in bushes and stuff. So it just gives me a mental idea of where I'm supposed to be working with on this. Here I'm just adding some. I want this bottom bit. This is going to be like a crescent moon shaped water pool with like a mound in the middle. And then, like I say, as you go toward the open day viewing area, there's going to be a much more rolling hills kind of vibe with the whole thing. But this is going to be more enclosed, almost sort of like a riverbed kind of vibe. Obviously, I've gone with that in the past when I built for the Jaguars, and it's something I wanted to carry on into this area as well. But yeah, really happy with how it turned out, this bottom bit. This is going to be the first area that I work on, just so that I can get the vibe going that I want. And in a moment, you're going to see me placing a absolute shed load of rocks. But those rocks do not last, and there's a simple reason for that. For some reason, I thought to myself, do you know what? Given that this is at the back of the sanctuary, this could be something that is built more later in the life cycle of the sanctuary. And it is, because obviously I'm building it now and not back in November when I started this project. But I thought to myself, maybe I don't want to say effort, but I think you would start to see these differentiations in the habitats as you sort of work your way further back into the newer areas of the sanctuary. But then I sort of thought to myself, I don't think the rock work would be something that plays into that. You know, obviously we're going to be doing this Siberian tiger habitat at some point. We're going to be doing the snow leopard dome as well. That is going to be like the that's going to be our Sistine Chapel for this whole sanctuary. And I was like, I don't really feel like the rock work would be affected as a result of that. So all this rock work you see me place down, all of these desert rocks, or I think they're desert rocks or grassland rocks that you see me placing down, they do not last. They go very, very quickly. I just was not happy with it, so they end up being replaced with the temperate rocks, which are the rocks that I've been using pretty much everywhere else in the sanctuary, and I don't regret it. I think the muted greys with the greens that I use with different types of foliage, I think really complement each other so well. So I'm glad I went back and redid this, because this probably would have been my biggest regret going into this habitat. Speaking of regrets, I almost broke one of my cardinal rules when I was doing this habitat. This viewing gallery that you've just seen me go past, the one with the weird fidget spinner type pathing, the path that leads from there up to the open day area wasn't there originally. It was something I added at a later date. I realized that I was breaking one of my big cardinal rules when I was designing this sanctuary, and that is that I didn't want to have these long dead end paths. The whole plan of this sanctuary has been built around the premise of exploration, and you've got these towering structures like the tower, you've got these long sight lines like across the lake, you know, the view from Cougar Creek down to this area. It's all done in a way that encourages you to explore and look for more to do. But the pathing as it currently existed on the open day area was, you'd go down the path, you'd pass the birds of prey arena into this sort of food court area where you could get a bite to eat, and then the only way to come out of that area was to retrace your steps. And that was something I really wanted to limit going into P.A.W.S. I wanted you to be able to have a nice loop to get around where you wanted to go, but also skip areas that you maybe weren't too keen on visiting. A key example of that is obviously the Central Gardens. Myself included, I suffer from hay fever quite badly, so why would I want to walk through somewhere that's heavily pollinated and pretty much make myself have sneeze attacks? I wouldn't want to. So the pathing that I've designed has been designed in a way that it allows you to avoid the Central Gardens, but obviously it means you're not missing any animals, because we've got the viewing area for the lynx inside the Central Gardens, but you've also got viewing areas outside of the gardens as well. It's completely designed that way, and it's something that I've been trying to go through in this whole process of designing. So that path that connects the open day area up to the fidget spinner path, I'm going to keep calling it that, that's something that has been done purely to get you back on track to a different area sanctuary that you haven't visited, and it keeps going that sort of that cycle of exploration that I've really tried to go for from day one of this place. And yes, I know Cougar Creek is kind of an exception to that rule, but I think that the path there is just short enough that you're not overly missing out on too much. Again, you go up to Cougar Creek, but I think there's enough both sides of you in terms of viewing that it keeps you encouraged, or it keeps you interested, I should say, not encouraged, but it keeps you interested for that extended period of time. The walk that started from the clouded leopards up to the back of the open day area was way too long. It wouldn't have held your interest. I just didn't like it, so instantly overwrote that area and added this path in, and I don't regret it. It's going to help with the flow of the sanctuary so much more. So now that the area is opened up, it means that people coming down from the open day area can either go back on themselves if they want, of course, which should take them to the Bengal tigers, or they can take this new path and it will bring them down to where the snow leopard dome and Siberian tigers are going to be. So again, choice matters. I think if you're forcing people to go to certain areas, I don't think it is that encouraging, but that's just my opinion. And in the background, we're starting to get some foliage in now as well. Lots of green grass, lots of what they call bramble bushes. We start obviously doing our usual creosote bush spam as well at some point. Buffalo grass starts making its appearance, but not before I start redoing the rock work. Obviously, I said a moment ago about how I hated the stone, and yeah, I end up redoing it. And like I say, I think it instantly looks better, even in these first few rocks being placed. I think it looks so much nicer. I'm not overly keen on the shade of rock. I do hope that rocks and foliage are going to be flexi-color in Planet Coaster 2, because at the moment I kind of wished I could turn some of my trees autumnal, especially if I'm building in certain biomes. I think I just associate certain biomes to certain times of year. So if I was building like a North American type build, I would maybe want to go with more oranges and yellows if it was the Yukon Valley type thing. But like I say, hopefully that's going to be the case for Planet Coaster 2, but we'll have to see. But speaking of Planet Coaster 2, I was thinking to myself, and I would love to see your guys' input in the comment section below on this. Do you think that you will actually use the foliage scenery brush that is going to be featuring in Planet Coaster 2? Because I personally don't. I am a strong belief and disposition that I think every tree that you place matters and holds a place in your builds. A lot of the trees that I place are there for sightline reasons. They're there to add height to a build, even if it's a flat area. They're there to provide things like shelter for the animals as well as guests as well. Obviously, I've talked about this in the past, where guest shelter is something that's very important in the construction of these types of establishments. And yeah, I just don't see myself using it personally. I might use it for, say, like buffalo grass or grass, but at the same time, we don't know how it's going to behave. We don't know whether it's going to be like an align to surface type deal or what, but it is what it is. We'll see what it is when it comes into the game, but I'd love to see your input on that below. Obviously, some of you aren't particularly keen on the foliage side, so it's probably something that you welcome with open arms. But anyway, we're here to watch Planet Zoo, so Planet Zoo is what I'm going to be talking about. The foliage is expanding, it's spreading all over this habitat now, but I've also started doing some of the barriers, and I wanted to do a mix match of different barriers. Obviously, again, it's going to be reusing old assets that are in the sanctuary, sue me, but I wanted there to be a different mix between the mesh. I wanted to be using these corrugated iron ones as well, just to give it that extra like a sort of double fenced feel as well. I ended up using the big stone retaining walls that feature in the Amur leopard and lion habitats. I just wanted it to be like a nice mix. I didn't want it to be all one thing of cage or all one thing of stone walls. I wanted there to be a nice mix. And here we are. Here's my famous buffalo grass spam. And then there is a little bit of work still to be done on this, even though that the video is concluded and I've quote unquote finished this habitat for the purposes of the video. But I definitely want to go back in and redo some of the terrain painting in this habitat. I want to go back and add some VFX pieces, like falling leaf pieces. But for the most part, the actual habitat is complete. The Caracals are in there. They've got fairly good welfare. The foliage thing is obviously letting them down, but I still don't like that change that Frontier made for the foliage. I wish they would revert the change, or if there's a modder watching this that agrees with me, feel free to create a mod that completely wipes out the need for foliage on animals. That would be absolutely amazing. But yeah, I just got mental with this stuff. As you can see, I love this so much. It's just, I think it really has been a game changer since its inception into the game. And who knows, we may even get more grass as part of the final DLC. And let's talk a little bit about the final DLC, because I am going to sort of offer my opinions on what it could be and what I don't think it's going to be. I think right off the bat, I think if you go in with the expectation of birds, then you are a silly individual. I don't want to call people out, but even if birds were introduced, I think I'd be very, very angry about the fact, because the packs like the aquatic pack were introduced early enough in the game that they could build upon that roster of animals that are in the game. Whereas if you had an animal pack which features 7 animals, if you had 7 birds added into the game, you're only scratching the surface of what that represents in terms of avian varieties in the world. So having to pick 7 out of all of the bird species in the world, I don't know how they could do it. I don't know. You would be annoying so many people with that decision. So I'd much rather they didn't bother, and I'd rather they saved it for a Planet Zoo 2 should it be something that comes at a later date. But for me personally, I think the best thing that would be coming to this game is some sort of farewell pack. I know some people have taken to calling it the Zookeeper's Collection pack or something like that, but it would just be a homage, and it would be a nod to the Frontier Forum's most wanted animals on that list. And I would not be upset about that at all. I think it would be a really nice nod from the game devs to say, thank you for playing our game. We've listened to you, and here's what you've wanted. Sorry you've had to wait so long, but here is like a collection of 7 animals, maybe even more, because obviously we're looking at a longer period of time between the last DLC and this one, but I'm not hopeful, because I can understand that a lot of their attention has obviously switched and has now been placed solely on Planet Coaster 2 before it drops. But I would love to see an animal pack that has the most wanted ones, purely because I know that things like the African leopard, I think, feature on that list, and potentially a serval. I hope both don't, because I'm so close to the end, and they would basically be adding... Well, after this video, I'm going to have 3 more big cats left. We've got both tiger varieties and the snow leopard. If they add 2 more cats to that, I'm screwed. I've got no space. Well, I've got space, but I'd have to redo my pathing layout completely. So I'm praying that they don't add 2 new cats, but it could be the fact that they do. I just hope that they don't, obviously. Because, quite frankly, I do not know when P.A.W.S will end, if that's going to be the case. But we're drawing very, very slowly to the conclusion of P.A.W.S, and it's been a joy to do. Obviously, we've seen this week a couple of the most iconic series on YouTube for Planet Zoo come to an end. We have seen ZHS's Saint... You know the one I'm talking about. I can't say it. That's come to an end. Obviously, very iconic series, franchise as well, which makes it, I think, even more impressive, and an incredible builder. I'll put a link to the playlist of that in the description, and also Koali Zoo as well. That has even longer running routes than ZHS's, purely because obviously it spans from the Planet Coaster days as well. But yeah, I do want to get this done and dusted one day, so that you can all have a little walk around and enjoy it. It's been my passion project for nearly a year. Like I say, November was when we started this, end of November was when we started this, and I would love to get it finished at some point. But I'm not thinking too far about that, because that's when I'm going to start rushing, and rushing is going to breed mistakes, and mistakes are going to breed regret, and this horrible knock-on effect breeds from that. But anyway, let's digress back to the gameplay. I'm just adding some little finishing touches here. You see, I've got this creek at the front here that I've added in. That was always going to be the plan at the end of the day. It was just sort of a continuation of what I was doing for the clouded leopards as well. They've got this gap between the ground level and the guest viewing. The lions have a similar thing as well. And it just keeps everything, I think, much more personal when you get to see the animal in the open, as opposed to through a pane of glass or through some mesh. So these open areas are something I've tried to incorporate a lot later on. I know they're not something to feature so much at the start. I think the first example of that is probably the cougars, if I remember rightly, because obviously the cheetah area, the rear of the cheetah area, was something that came way after that. So it's something that we obviously didn't do for the Amur leopards, and it's not something we did for the cheetahs. You could argue that the swans were the first example of that, but they're sort of more like a native species, so they're obviously not going to be encaged or encased in a habitat similar to what these big cats are. So, but what I'm going to be doing is, in the background, you're just going to be seeing me doing the usual stuff. It's going to be a lot of heavy foliage placement, a lot of rock placement. I'll be adding some of the enrichment bits. We end up looking at getting the Caracals actually in, and you'll see me just doing little finishing touches to their traversable area so that they can't escape. And then it's just more of stuff like this, you know, we're getting lines, signs from all over the place, and adding them in so that everything's tied together. This is the consistent element of the sanctuary. The signs, the foliage, obviously all being indigenous to the UK. All of this stuff is what ties it together into feeling like one park rather than separate areas all tacked together. But this habitat is a little bit, I don't know, it sticks out like a sore thumb at the moment, but I think that's because the surrounding areas aren't completed. I understand that once the Bengal tiger habitat is in, and once the Siberian tiger habitat is even in, this area will feel a lot more part of its own rather than sort of sticking out at the moment. But it's slowly spreading to the back, and yeah, next episode will obviously have the Bengal tigers. I'm going to leave you with the speed footage in the background, and I will catch you at the end when we're going to sort of just be touching on something pretty special coming to the channel and, well, me in general. and welcome back. I do hope that you have enjoyed this episode, but like I said before, before the speed build footage kicked in, there was a special announcement, and we're going to jump into that right now. That's right. We're going to be raising funds for the WWF. This is something I did last year, and we had huge success. £1,150 we raised, and we're doing it all over again. 11th of October is going to be the date. It's going to be over on Twitch. It's going to be starting around about midday UK time. We're going to have things like giveaways. I'm going to be playing some Planet Zoo. I'm going to be playing some Rage games as well, just for the laughs as well. But in the background, between now and the 7th of October, we're actually be running something a little bit special. And that is going to be a shell challenge. The idea of this challenge is purely for sport. Obviously, it's going to be done with the idea of raising awareness of what we're doing here. Even if people aren't donating from a financial standpoint, just talking about the work that the WWF is going to be so important. So you can find the shell challenge over on my workshop page. All of the rules and stuff are there as well if you want to take part. But something like this is only possible because of you. So a massive thank you, and I hope to see you there on the 11th and enjoy the shell. But thank you so much for watching this video. Thank you so much for watching this announcement at the end as well. Very exciting stuff. And I hope you have a fantastic week. Take care.